Do you want to go for a walk later? No thanks, kind of busy. Grief is no joke, guys. It is exhausting, it's tough, it's emotional, and it can be really, really isolating. So it can be insanely important to find a really good, solid support system of people that you can talk to, even if you don't feel like it sometimes. Even huge introverts like myself need at least a few people that you can rely on to share your feelings with while you are grieving. So where do you find this support system? You can find support in a lot of different places. The most obvious is to look through your friends and family and find who you think would be a good fit. Next would be to go with the professional route. So you could look for a counselor, a therapist, psychologist, or you could look for a grief coach or someone who is specifically in the grief field, but someone who is professionally trained to help you. And the other place that you can look is online. You can look for support groups, either online or in person, just to meet and get face-to-face with other people who are going through something similar to you. It is all about that connection with other people. It doesn't have to be for huge amounts of time. If you're really not feeling like being social or hanging out with a lot of people right now, totally fine, totally understandable. I hate being social myself, but I force myself to do it as much as I can because I know that it's really good for my mental health.
I do it because I have to.
So where you want to start is with something that I like to call the State of the Union of your support system. Okay, so let's start with our friends and family first. Now, if you are really early in your grief, you probably have a flood of people who are reaching out to talk to you and to help you however you need it. If you're a little bit further along, that pool has probably dried up quite a bit. In either case, what you want to do is look through your friends and family members, and you want to make a list of 2 to 3 people who you would feel really, really comfortable sharing your feelings with. These are the people that you can picture yourself sitting down to have a conversation, that you can imagine crying in front of that person and you don't feel embarrassed or you don't feel guilty about making them awkward. It's people whom you are really comfortable with. Now, you don't need a lot of people in this role. So if only 1, 2, 3 names come to mind, that is totally fine. Side note here, you might have people who reach out to you really often and reach out to you consistently asking if you want to do things or if they can help in any sort of way or if you want to talk, and maybe you just don't feel a comfortable vibe with that person or you don't see that person as someone that you could kind of make that deep connection with and just feel cool like venting about your life and crying and ranting about your grief. That is totally okay. Not everyone, even the people who reach out a lot, some of those people won't fit into that role. You want someone that you have that vibe with. And if it's the people that are reaching out to you a lot, that's great. If it's not, don't change who you want your person to be in that role to make other people feel like they're being useful or to make other people feel comfortable. This is really for you, and it's your comfort level that's going to dictate who these close people are. So to give you an example of this personally, my brother, I love him to death. I know that he loves me. I know that he would do anything in the world for me, but when it comes to grief and feelings, he is a complete a-hole. Honestly, he would never in a million years make my list of my ride or die people to call if I need to talk about my feelings or vent about my grief. He's just not that kind of person.
You're dead inside. You have no feelings.
So again, not going to be on my list. Now, my ex-husband, David, he knows exactly what I'm going through because he's going through the same thing. We both lost our child. We are divorced, but he is probably my go-to person if I need to call someone and cry and vent, because he knows how I feel and he knows that he can just listen and he can offer advice if I ask for it. But he's comfortable just listening to me vent, and I do the same thing for him. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. And I do the same thing for him. So he is definitely the first person on my list of who I call if I need to cry or vent. So again, it might not be the people that you think are totally obvious, but some people just step up and fill in that role for you. And that's awesome. Now, when you come up with these names, it is really, really important to let them know. Let them specifically know that they are going to be filling that role for you, and ask them if they are cool with that. There are some people that might not have the bandwidth to be that person in your life right now. Maybe they've got their own things going on and they can't be the person that you call to vent and share your feelings whenever you need to. But most people that you ask will be honored that you ask them to be in that role and will probably be fine with it. But you just need to let them know ahead of time that they are going to be your point person for calling and sharing those griefy feelings and, venting and rambling about whatever it is that's bothering you at that certain moment. So make sure they are cool with it. If they are, that's awesome. If they're not, tell them no love lost. You appreciate their honesty and move on to the next person on the list. Okay, now, once you have those people banged out, that list of people that you can call who are your ride or die people, then you want to make another list of people who can help you with other things, people who can support you in more concrete ways. So these are not the venture hard out people. These are the people who have offered to help you with errands, to help you with chores, to help look after your kids, to bake you a casserole or drop off a meal or a gift card or something like that. There are usually lots of people who would love to help you in that way. And maybe you don't feel comfortable making them your vent your heart out person, but you're totally fine with them dropping off a meal every now and then, and that's something that you would appreciate. You're also going to have the people who are texting you every now and then. Hey, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? Do you want to take a walk? Do you want to go see a movie? Anything like that. You know what? Coming from an introvert, I will still give you this advice. Take them up on as many of those things as you feel comfortable doing. You might not feel like it at the time, but honestly, doing those things is going to be a huge mood boost. I know sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do this, or I want to cancel at the last minute, but then I make myself do it. And I'm always so glad that I did, because it just got me out of the house, got my mind off of things, got me back into the real world, and just made me feel a little more human for a little bit. Now, if you are struggling to find people with whom you feel really comfortable talking about your grief or venting about your feelings or crying or screaming or whatever it is that you need to do, and even if you're having trouble finding people to help you with things or to go out for a cup of coffee or to a movie or whatever, in that case, you might want to look for a professional. And the other times that you might want to look for a professional is when you feel like you are unable to function. You're unable to get out of bed. You're unable to interact with the real world. Those are also times where you might want to consider talking to a professional and having a professional as part of your support system. So this would be something like a counselor, a therapist, or a grief coach. Any of those would be fine, but you want to look for someone who does one-on-one training, either online or in person. I think it is really, really imperative that when you are in deep grief, you have someone with whom you can share those one-on-one interactions about your feelings and what you're going through. You can find counselors in your area or online, but I recommend personally someone who is familiar with working with people who are in grief. So you can look online, Google grief counselors near me, things like that if you want someone in person, or there's a bunch of them online, so you can just Google grief coaches or grief counseling and find people that way. Grief can be a really, really lonely experience, and a lot of times you feel like you are the only person going through it. So by connecting with other people who are also grieving, it helps you to feel like you are not so alone, like you're not so weird. It's just comforting knowing that other people are kind of going through the same thing that you are. So online groups, grief groups are great for this, actually online or in person, either one. They are really good for interacting with other people so that you don't feel alone and you can get advice or suggestions from others who are in similar situations. So there are lots of grief groups that can help with this, especially online. There are both free groups, there are paid groups. You can find them just by Googling grief support groups. A lot of your favorite faces in the grief community have their own groups. Your YouTube personalities or people on social media that you interact with in the grief world. A lot of them have their own specialized grief groups or communities that you could join. Again, some are free, some are paid, so you just kind of have to do your research, and you just want to find a group that, again, is your vibe, that you kind of that you enjoy that person who's leading it, that you are looking for what it is that they offer in that group. So don't just pick the first one that you come across. You want to look and kind of find different examples and see what aligns most with your belief system, with what you are looking to do. I definitely recommend finding groups that are actual communities and have moderators, kind of like a leader, someone who is in charge of the group, rather than just finding kind of random Facebook groups, which can be really, really depressing. And honestly, sometimes people are throwing out advice in there that's not moderated, and a lot of it is just really wrong. So yeah, I recommend finding grief support groups where you meet on either face-to-face in person or face-to-face online with actual set up meeting times for you to meet, so that it's not just, and a lot of these have things where, you can post anytime, you can interact with each other and comment and things like that, but it's not just kind of like willy-nilly, anyone can post whatever they want and no one's moderating. Those usually end up not so good. And look, I know grief can be an insanely isolating and overwhelming and lonely experience. I know firsthand that it's natural to want to retreat into yourself and just kind of hunker down on the couch and not interact with people and, just be sad and miserable a lot of the time. But it's important to remember that you shouldn't go through this difficult time alone. As much as sometimes you do need to be alone or you want to be alone, you want to make sure that you have that support system in place by following kind of those steps that I gave you. So do your State of the Union, find your ride or die people that you can call whenever you need to, and you feel comfortable venting and sharing your feelings. Find the group of people, make a list of people that you could go to if you need small support or you need help with things around the house or help with errands, help with food, that kind of stuff. You need that kind of support system. You can do professional, if you need to find a professional counselor or grief coach, you can do that. And then also online support, just support with other people going through a similar situation as you to help you feel like you are not alone. So those are the steps that I recommend. Again, binge on Netflix as much as you want, curl up on the sofa, make sure that you make time, for self-care and to relax, but every now and then drag yourself out into the real world. Trust me, you will feel better once you did. All right, guys, thanks so much. I am going to link another video here that YouTube thinks would be an awesome match for you, so you can go ahead and head there and watch that one. I will be back at you next week with another video. Sending love and hugs as always. Okay, what time do you want to meet? Send.